Hello, and welcome to the Agentic AI Survival Series for marketers. It's a three-part series where we're going to get into what it takes to stay connected and relevant to customers as they interact with the various modes of agentic AI that we see out there in the real world. My name's Ross McRae, and I'm a CDP strategist here at Telium. Here's our agenda for the series. In part two, we'll distinguish between what we refer to as first, second, and third-party agents, and we'll look at how to approach each. And we'll wrap up the series with risks, opportunities, and where to focus to actually get started. But for now, here in part one, we'll set the foundations by looking at the importance and prevalence of agentic AI at the moment, what it actually looks like in the real world, the disintermediation or the disconnection with your brand that can result and how to adapt to it. We're going to look at what you need to succeed in the face of that disintermediation. And we're going to introduce 7 key digital capabilities that are needed for what we call turn-by-turn context streaming. So recently, Scott Brinker, who's sometimes referred to as the godfather of MarTech, released a review of AI MarTech. And he said, in 2026, the marketers who thrive won't be the ones with the most tools. They'll be the ones who've learned to work alongside 3 very different kinds of AI agents. Firstly, there's agents for marketers, agents for marketers. So think of this as the internal AI superpowers that you've got in your platforms that help you create content and research and, do workflow automation, help you be more productive. Second kind is agents for customers. So external facing agents, AI agents, that enhance customer experience and they actually have to work. And then thirdly, we've got agents of customers. So that's AI that's shopping, researching, and evaluating on behalf of your customers and prospects. And it might be evaluating you on your behalf. And this can be happening whether you're ready for it or not. So those are the 3 kinds. Now, we acknowledged the first one, agents for marketers. I mean, they're very important. But in this series, we're going to be focusing on customer-facing agents. Now, we like to categorize them as first-party, second-party, and third-party agents, respectively, and more on those distinctions and why they're important in the next episode. But as a teaser, as Scott actually says, the more agents operate outside your direct control, the more critical your first-party context becomes. All right, let's take a step back. We've been saying this for a while now. So, if you don't have IVR, at one point you lost a generation there. If you didn't have a website at one point there, you lost a generation. If you don't have an app, if you didn't have an app, you lost a generation. Well, now it's 2026, and if you don't have an agentic interface, then you're going to lose a generation. And so the question then becomes, is industry adopting agentic AI? Well, it certainly is. From retail and CPG, where you might expect it most. 80% of brands using Gen AI in customer-facing use cases, but right through to even highly regulated sectors like FSI. And it's not just neobanks, but high street banks, Bank of America, NatWest, Commonwealth Bank. Across the spectrum, we see investment in and rollout of real-world facing agentic AI services. And if we flip that question, we can ask, are consumers embracing agentic AI as they interact with products and services day to day? I mean, ask yourself, are you? The evidence says yes. We know that 90% of workers use AI tools like ChatGPT and Gemini in their daily lives. But there's ample evidence that across industry sectors, customers actively use it when interacting with brands. There's some striking numbers from the telco sector, for example, and yes, banking too. Like a recent survey finding that 72% of under 40s have used a banking chatbot to interact with their bank and transact with it. So it's on, it's real, it's happening, and it kind of feels like this. I mean, agents can be FAQ-like in that first example, generate an affordable party shopping list for 20 kids and 10 adults. But they can be much more dynamic and action-oriented, like the second example. Send me stickers and treat boxes for my superhero-themed kids party. I've got 30 people coming. Do something for me. And yeah, also in the world of FSI, I mean, how good would it be just to say, can you just pay off the credit card for me and help me raise the limit? Because, I keep going over. I mean, and this all looks great for consumers, right? But what about for brands, or what about for marketers? I mean, if the marketer's role is to understand customers, create strategies and execute campaigns to drive business growth, and where does marketing fit in here? If you look at it like this, this kind of is disintermediation writ large. The customer's talking to the agent, to us, the brand, the marketer. The customer can seem like they're just a voice in a vacuum. And what are the impacts of that disintermediation, that disconnect? Well, website traffic, consumers are going to start to rely on AI agents for information, and their recommendations, and ultimately even shopping. They'll transact with agents without ever visiting, your website or your app. And therefore, the brand control starts to get lost because it's agents who are deciding how to describe your products or whether to recommend them or even mention them at all. Things like SEO, traditional search and SEO, that's going to lose influence because users are not browsing the web. Um, and the differentiation between brands, particularly the brands and branding, what makes you you, that will start to be lost as AI will favor function and price and availability and nearbyness, other rationales that are outside of what you want to accomplish as a brand and outside your sphere of influence. Possibly it's a race to the bottom in some sense. And of course, if you think about customer data, if I got fewer website and app visits, then I got potentially fewer first-party data signals that I can use for personalization, remarketing, and understanding my customers. And this is kind of where the battleground is going to be. So to survive and thrive, we're going to need to adapt to being agentic first. So we're going to have to be present inside the AI ecosystems. You're going to need to create your own AI agents and assistants, build agent-ready tools and services, and differentiate with experience and context, not just information. So service, loyalty, rewards, community, emotion, those things. And of course, we're going to have to invest even more strongly in loyalty and engagement and direct consumer relationships. That's what it's going to take to be agentic first. Now, we can note that things like paid ads or paid recommendations or paid mentions, maybe even targeted content based on identified large language model users, ChatGPT users, let's say, inside those major chatbot agents, that might become a thing. And in fact, in early 2026, as we're recording this, that is starting to happen, or it's about to happen. And companies like Telium will always be ready for that with connectors to any such buying, bidding, and ad serving platforms as they become available. But our focus here today is actually on the AI agents themselves. So, what does it take to be successful with agentic AI? Well, we believe there are three core pillars. Firstly, you need a united data foundation. So it's a single real-time view of the customer across all touch points. So app, web, loyalty, in-store, wherever you meet the customer. And this needs to be available to your AI agent. It must have that view. Secondly, you need trust and consent. You need a robust consent management framework to avoid the risk of violating consent, for one thing, but also avoid the paralysis that comes if you're not sure if you can use some data or not. So an agent must only use data that it's permitted to use, and you must be sure that it's doing that safely. And then thirdly, real-time activation. So the ability to act, full stop, but the ability to act in the moment, in real time, in that moment, in the at every turn of that agentic conversation. That's what's going to make an agent truly impactful. And the smartest agent will win. I mean, if you think about these facets of an agent, even if you were a human agent, these are the sorts of qualities you would want to have. If I know you, then I can serve you better. If I know what your intent is, then I can direct you better. If what I know about you is bang up to date, then I'm going to be relevant and effective. If I'm responsive and in the moment, then I'm going to earn and keep your attention. If I respect your consent, then you'll trust me, and my brand will not be at risk. These are the things that it takes. Right. So how, or rather, these are the things that you want your agents to be like. So how can you enable your agents to be smart like this? Well, it's all about giving the AI agent the customer context that it needs. And we've started to call this context streaming. So it's a set of always-on capabilities that you need to ensure that your AI agents, always have the required customer context to both decide, but also to act. Okay, so think about an AI agent in a chat context. So in generating its responses, the agent needs the agent needs knowledge of the customer or the person or the device that it's engaging with. And with each turn of that conversation, that chat conversation, it needs to assimilate the information that it got from that customer/person/device and use it in its next response. And it also needs connectivity to a range of customer engagement systems that you, in fact, that same range of customer engagement systems that you as a marketer are already using to deliver customer experience. Yes, we're in a chatbot at the moment, but we also send emails. We also personalize the site. People call into the contact center. All of those, we need the ability to execute based on what we discover in this chat conversation in all of those platforms. Now, let's look in a little bit more detail because we've identified 7 key capabilities that make an agent smart and effective. Well, firstly, it's consent. So, every data event, every piece of data that we receive, via, that's coming from the site or from an app or any source of data, it needs to come with the consent permissions attached to it so that we know what we can do with it. So agents and, of course, all platforms need to know what they're allowed to do with the data that they receive. Or conversely, they should only have access to data that they are permitted to use. And if consent is withdrawn even halfway through the session, then it needs to be respected and enforced from that point on. So that's consent. Secondly, recall. So by what we mean by this is whatever is in the customer profile or the device profile, depending on what we're interacting with, but whatever is in that profile needs to be available instantly to the agent. And that includes, what's in that profile. That include the click, the latest clicks that the user performs, while they were chatting with the chatbot agent. So it needs to be bang up to date, and it needs to be available instantly, at the very least at the speed of a conversation. Thirdly, update. What we mean by update means that the profile needs to be getting updated with each turn of this chat session. So the entire profile needs to be updated in milliseconds, really, and with this conversational data. So the user's messages that they type into the chat, but also the agent's responses. Fourthly, when we're talking about augmenting, so augmenting means if you think about what we're all doing when we're building our customer profiles, we enrich what we know about customers. We transform data as it comes in to get this perfect view that we've got. And all of the things that we're doing there also equally need to be applied to the data that's passing back and forth in this agentic chat conversation. So you've got to be able to call any sort of service as each data event flows through. Like, it might be good to know what the weather is right now as this conversation is happening. That's a classic example, isn't it? Well, I can make a call out. I might want to call a fraud model. Was something that was just said cause for me to be concerned about fraud? Well, I have a model. I just need to feed it with this latest bit of data that I've got in this conversation. What about detecting PII, for example? Have I got some sensitive data that I should now be careful with? That kind of thing. And it needs to happen in real time. And it needs a platform underneath it that's doing that for the agent. Fifth, talking about predict. So those agentic signals, let's call them that, what's happening in the chat conversation, those signals are just as important as any other signals for our propensity models that we're running. So that kind of data, imagine some negative sentiment comes through. That's something I want to go through and help to train my models, but also I want to know what the score is on my models that I'm running as a result of that negative sentiment in this example. So we need that to be there and happening under the scenes, and for the signals from the agent to be doing that. Sixth, interpretation. So when we say interpret, I'm specifically thinking here particularly about like a Gen AI interpretation in particular. So what we want to be able to do, ideally, is to be able to extend the Gen AI capabilities without having our agent to have 10, 20, 30 different tools where it's interpreting and generating new features and facets and attributes, all in this one simple chatbot agent. So what we need behind the scenes is some capability that's doing that continuously on the agent's behalf and making it available. So you need the flexibility to classify any kind of incoming data signal. And that includes the user's message, and it could even include the agent's response. So we want that in there too. And then finally, when we talk about act, here's the kicker. So everything we've just said, you can readily understand as being this is the true context of the customer that we're dealing with. But the kicker is this, that the agent needs to be able to act in the real world. So that context streaming actually goes both ways, in and out of the agent. So since any given turn of the conversation may become a trigger for action, thanks to all of the context and enrichments that we've been talking before, your agent needs to be able to activate in any of the platforms that you use to execute your customer experiences. Now, you need a platform underneath that's enabling it to do that. I don't want to have 10, 20, 30 different kind of tools again that the agent selectively calls. The agent gets bloated. I want a platform that I can hand that off to. So these then are the key capabilities that we see as being essential to be able to create a smart and effective agent. So now, of course, that's exactly what Telium does. This wouldn't be a Telium webinar if I wasn't telling you about the things that Telium's doing. It does that. It delivers all of those essential capabilities in an always on, always connected real-time data layer. And as I said, we call this context streaming. And it works both ways, both in and out of the agent, as I just described. And critically, it's happening continuously in the moment with every turn of the conversation. All right. Now that concludes this first episode. So we've looked at the importance and prevalence of agentic AI, the disintermediation that can result, and what you need to do to adapt to it. And then we've outlined 7 key capabilities needed by AI agents for turn-by-turn context streaming. Next time, we'll look into first, second, and third-party agents. We're going to go deeper into how they work, and we'll show you how you can ensure that your presence and relevance is there in each of those forms of AI agents. So we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you.